Hello and welcome to another Retfurb video. Today we're looking at the XTR rear derailleur M950. So as you can see, this one's pretty worn, pretty scratched. Not as bad as I've seen some of them, but it still needs to be tidied up a bit. So the plan is to strip it all down as much as you can. Obviously you won't be able to get all of it because it's pinned in some places, but remove as much as we can, clean it all up and then get it ready for paint. And then hopefully by the end of it all, it'll be running like it should have done from the factory. So first things first, now we just start removing some of the bits off of it. So I'm not actually sure why this little clip's on here. It doesn't seem to be actually doing anything, unless anyone knows any different. I'm wondering if there's supposed to be another part that's clipped on. The bit that is on is actually just pressed into the derailleur. So you can see I'm just carefully levering it out, just taking my time not to damage the derailleur while I'm removing it. Now I'm just removing the two adjusting screws on the back. This is pretty simple, just two screws and then the little black plastic part comes out. So now you can see this part is quite corroded. It's only the little locking pin which is actually the corroded part. It'll clean up all okay. So this bit's just got to be prized out and then you'll be able to get the main bolt out from it. The thing that makes it the hardest when you're working on this is the spring going through the middle of the derailleur. It just makes it difficult when you're trying to move it all around and undo stuff. So now I'm just removing the parts around the main bolt. As you can see, the main bolt is quite stiff in there. I need to get an Allen key on that just to help loosen it and get it out. So that's the main bolt finally removed. As you can see, that took a bit of doing over time. Has obviously got a bit of corrosion in there and just made it a little bit harder for that to be removed. So now I'm just levering out the small seal that goes around the main bolt. Now to remove the jockey wheel cage. These are just two simple Allen key bolts to remove them. Both of these jockey wheels are knackered, so they'll be replaced. Now on to separating the lower cage part from the main part of the derailleur. Again, this is just one Allen key bolt and then there's a spring to remove. Now I'm just degreasing all the parts, ready to sand it down for paintwork. So whilst I'm doing this, I just thought I'd mention this is going on the GT STS build that I'm doing on another video. All the refurb of the individual parts will be shown here on YouTube, and I'll mention on each one which build it's going on. We've got the GT STS and the Cannondale build currently going on. As you can see here, it's cleaned up pretty well and it's ready for sanding for paintwork. Now I'm just working for all the small parts, just degreasing them, ready for when we fit it up at the end. That's all the cleanup all finished. Now we can move on sanding it down, ready for paint. So here I'm just starting with a 320 coarser grade just to get rid of the worst bits on this part. So these bits can be a little bit fiddly going around with the sandpaper, so just work my way around. Obviously most of this you won't see anyway because it'll be inside the cage, so I'll get it as best as I can without going too mad. So this part of the cage and the main part of the derailleur aren't actually that bad. They've only got minor scratches, so they won't need a hell of a lot. There is a little dig on this one which I'll just sand out, but other than that it'll be quite straightforward. I can move on to a finer grade. I'll probably finish with a 600 or 800 grade. So now moving on to the main part of derailleur, there are some minor scratches on this which probably could have been touched in, but I prefer to spray it on this occasion because it was little bits all over it. So now that everything's all sanded down, we can now clean them up, get them all degreased again, and then ready for paint. So now that's all the parts prepped for paintwork, now we can get on to spraying them. The first thing I'm going to do here is give it a dust coat with primer, just a grip coat to allow the paint to grip to the surface. Now I'm just using a heat gun to dry the surface between coats. So now I'm going to apply one even coat of primer just to cover the surface, ready for the next coat. And whilst I moved out of the way, my dog decided to have a cameo on the video. He likes to be in with everything you're doing, wherever you are, so needless to say he was here while I was doing this. So just continuing with applying the primer on this part. So again now applying the primer to the main part. So I was trying to think of the best way of doing this. I decided to wedge it open, as you can see here. I think this way it'll cover the most, and then when I can sort of let it relax, I can check to make sure it's covered everything I need it to. So now we're on to putting the main grey coat on this. So I'm just going to do a dust coat again just to grip it onto the primer surface. And now another coat, one full coat of the grey on that. And now again, just using the heat gun to help it cure between coats. So now I'm going to use this Vauxhall Moonland Grey. This will just give it a little bit of a sparkle, make it a little bit more metallic-y looking, a bit more like the original. So I'm only just dusting this on very lightly, so you will see the main grey underneath, and it will just have this little bit of a sheen on top. So now exactly the same process what I just did on the previous part, and now just doing it on this bit. Now onto applying the grey on the final part, the main part of the derailleur. So I did put a little bit of paper in here just to mask up most of the spring to stop most of the overspray going in there. So that's all the paintwork now done, and now we move on to fitting it up. And now is the job to try and work out where everything goes. I did have a little bit of trouble going through this, so I cut a few bits out. I started putting the spring in one place in the wrong way, and then realised I was doing it wrong, so no big deal, I got there in the end. Most of the parts are pretty self-explanatory. It was only the springs that I got modelled up, but most of the bits you can see where they go. I remembered most of it. When I put the springs in, you just got to remember to grease it all up when you put it in there. Now just fitting the cable securing bolt. And now the two adjusting screws at the back. So I was trying to be as careful as I could while I was fitting this up, not to mark it. I did catch it a couple of places when I was trying to put the springs in, but it was only very slightly on the edge. I actually touched it in after the video. So now on to fitting up some of the parts on the cage. So this is a small little part that just has to be pressed back in. Again, I'm not sure what this actually is. The little clip that's on it appeared to be holding something, but there was nothing on here that it was holding, so whether it had fallen off before I bought the derailleur or not, I don't know. Now just to start greasing up the spring, ready to refit it. And also to add grease on the bolt, make it easier to fit, and then hopefully it'll stop corrosion in the future. There's also another little plastic washer that needs to go on here. This is just a little seal in the area. I don't think it does a hell of a lot, but it's supposed to be on there. This bit can be a little bit fiddly trying to put it back on, because obviously the spring's trying to go against you where you're trying to screw it back down. And now just putting the locking clip back in place, which will hold it all. And this is the spring to connect the cage part. I actually had to remove the small screw that I put on the cage to put this part on. It wouldn't go on without that part being removed. Now just one Allen key bolt to hold that part together. So now just putting that screw back in after I fitted that part. You can see now it's starting to come together and it's looking pretty good. So now to put the jockey wheels back in and put the main cage back together. These jockey wheels are not genuine Shimano parts, they're actually made by BBB. I think that's the name of the company. They seem pretty good, to be fair. I've used them on an XT Derailleur previously and they seemed okay. Now just tightening up the two bolts for the cage. So that's the fit up now completed. Now we can move on to putting the decals on, and then I'm going to put a small piece of protection film just over the top of the decal just to help protect it. So these decals were individually cut. They're quite small, they were quite fiddly to put on, but as you can see it went on okay. And then the protection film, when that goes over the top, you will see it. It doesn't stand out in the face as much as it looks on the camera. When it's actually on the bike it probably won't be noticeable. But obviously looking up close to it you will see the protection film on there, even though it is a matte finish, to try and replicate the finish of the actual paint. So here the S part of the Shimano decided to lift back up when I pulled the transfer tape off, so I just had to put it back on and then just rub over the top, which helped it adhere better. I'm just going around here with the tweezers, just adjusting it, making sure that it's sort of sitting straight and not looking wonky at all. So as you can see here, it's come out pretty well, it looks pretty good. So now just to put the protection film over the piece with the decal on. There isn't a definite need to do this, but I just thought it would be better. It'd give a good coating for the decal, just prevent any rubbing off or any scratching of the decal, because obviously it's a bit fiddly to do. I don't really want to have to keep doing it. So the protection film's just fitted wet, just helps it make it easier to move over the surface. So you just need to try and get as much of the water out while you're fitting it. So basically we're done here. Again, it's come out pretty well. I'm happy with how it's turned out and it'll look great on the bike. Once again, thanks for watching the video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.